Hey folks, hope you all are doing well. I am Karan Bandal from Econosite, your weekly wrap on economic news from India and around the world. So let's get started. India's retail inflation falls to 6.77% in October according to government data. Let's set the stage. Retail inflation was 4.48% in October 2021. Now let's see where we are. Retail inflation dropped from 7.41% in September 2022 to 6.77% in October 2022. This reduction is mainly due to easing prices in the food basket. The Reserve Bank of India has an inflation target band of between 2 to 6%. So the current retail inflation is still above the Reserve Bank's comfort level. In fact, this is the 10th month in a row where retail inflation has been above the RBI's target. This is not unique to India though. Anywhere you look around the world, you will see elevated inflation levels. Now, when RBI fails to contain the CPI, that is consumer price inflation or retail inflation, within their target range of 2 to 6% for 3 consecutive quarters, they must send a report to government detailing reasons for failure and steps it is taking to bring the CPI in the target range. So now that inflation has remained high for 10 months in a row or for more than 3 quarters in a row, RBI will have to do just that. Let's see how the inflation is projected to move. CPI inflation likely to cool off to 6% in 4 months. RBI MPC may raise repo rate by 30 to 50 basis points in December meeting. According to economists, inflation is likely to gradually cool off to around 6% by February 2023 and further drop to around 5.5% in March 2023 within the inflation target band of the RBI. The Reserve Bank of India Monetary Policy Committee is expected to continue with rate hikes in December 2022 meet before pausing rate increases this cycle. The terminal repo rate or central bank's interest rate is seen at up to 6.75% by the end of 2022. Compare this with the Fed funds rate or central bank's interest rate in the US, which is likely to be at up to 4.75% by the end of 2022. India's inflation seems to be moving in the right direction. Now let's look at a different macroeconomic indicator for India. Direct tax mop-up to exceed budget target by 25 to 30% according to CBDT chief. CBDT stands for Central Board for Direct Taxes. The direct tax collection for the current fiscal year is targeted at 14.2 lakh crore rupees or $173 billion. Actual direct tax collection is expected to exceed this target by about 30%. Now 25 to 30% spike means that the direct tax collection for this fiscal will be around 18.46 lakh crore rupees or $225 billion. I have been reading that the indirect tax collection, that is GST, has been averaging at 1.5 lakh crore rupees per month, which comes out to be 18 lakh crore rupees for the entire fiscal year or $225 billion. So this fiscal year potentially India will collect 36.46 lakh crore rupees or $450 billion combined in direct and indirect taxes, which will be an all-time high. Let's look at this next story in light of these encouraging macroeconomic indicators for India. Once in a lifetime opportunity. How a mass lockdown at world's biggest iPhone factory is India's big chance to beat out China as Apple's favorite supplier. Foxconn Technology Group is the world's biggest electronics manufacturer. The company is headquartered in Taiwan but has a major manufacturing presence in China. Foxconn's Zhengzhou, China facilities are located in a big industrial park also known as iPhone City, where close to 200,000 workers are employed. Now, this is a city with 800,000 residents within the city of Zhengzhou that has 8 million residents. Due to COVID outbreak in this area, these workers were working within a closed loop system, meaning they sleep, live and work within a designated area cut out from the outside world. Imagine 200,000 people confined within a designated area, forced to work and exposed to the virus. What do you think is likely to happen? In late October 2022, videos began circulating on the internet showing thousands of people hauling suitcases along the city streets and highways of Zhengzhou, China. These were workers from Foxconn Technology Group, escaping that industrial park. A few days after this mass exodus, China locked down the industrial park itself, further isolating those workers who remained. Foxconn facilities across China suffered production hits this year due to government enforced lockdowns and closed loop systems like we just talked about. For nearly 3 years, companies like Apple have operated with uncertainties around when and where the next China lockdown will strike and for how long. This has highlighted risks of being over-dependent on Chinese factories. Patrick Penfield, professor of supply chain practice at Syracuse University, told Fortune that China's adherence to zero COVID, alongside growing Sino-US tensions, has made it increasingly difficult for businesses to solely rely on Chinese suppliers for product. Zhengzhou is a crucial site for Apple's iPhone production, particularly for the newest models. iPhone production could slow by as much as 30% due to the recent events, and that too during the most important holiday quarter for Apple. That could mean a severe hit to Apple's revenue. Apple now have no choice but to diversify its supply base. This is where India comes into the picture. In June 2020, India announced $6.6 billion incentive scheme to attract global firms to produce their electronics in India. Among all the emerging markets where companies like Apple can look to set up manufacturing shop, India has a few unique beneficial dimensions: strong government support for smartphone manufacturing, large labor force of skilled and young professionals, and a vast domestic market size. Add to that a stable democracy and steady macroeconomic indicators. Also, India's fast growing high-end smartphone market is expected to hit 10% next year. So, Foxconn's moving production from China to India is also about getting closer to a high growth market rather than, say, following US policy signaling to contain China. Foxconn plans to quadruple its India workforce in the next 2 years to 70,000, according to a Reuters report. Foxconn's medium to long term goal is to ship 40 to 45% of iPhones from India versus the current 2 to 4%, which means a rapid expansion of its iPhone production capacity in India in the next few years. Along with Apple, Samsung, Xiaomi and Google, which makes Pixel phones, are also shifting production to India. From 2021 to 2022, India's smartphone production surged 126%. Making India the world's second biggest smartphone manufacturer behind China. Some other companies like Abbott, Boeing, Tata, Flex, Pratt & Whitney and so on are also following the lead. For India to take advantage of these changes, it needs to build infrastructure and talent pool that these companies need. It will be difficult for India to replicate efficient and high value manufacturing networks that China currently offers. India still imports a bulk of components for iPhone production from China. So, a complete decoupling from China for these companies is difficult in the near term, but it is a start. And let's see how well India and other emerging nations like Mexico and Vietnam are able to deliver a competent alternative to China's capabilities. In summary, India's macroeconomic indicators are better than its peers and even better than advanced economies in the West. Strong tax collection, retail inflation on the mend, government borrowing is not much. India's debt to GDP ratio is at 83.4%, which is lower than most of the advanced economies in the West. the country is poised for an acceleration in its growth. Strong macroeconomic indicators ensure that India can withstand unexpected economic shocks like the ones that world recently experienced. Surely multinational companies would want to capture some share in this fast growing pie, and investment friendly government policies are further sweetening the pot for these companies. I hope you enjoyed this week's wrap. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.